Hi, I'm Lily from Merinoyvino, and I want to talk to you guys about indie dyed yarn today. Recently, I heard a local yarn shop owner talk about indie dyed yarn, and while I think all indie dyers can say that we greatly appreciate the support we get from local yarn stores, this owner seemed to have some bad experiences with indie dyers. And this owner showed examples of yarn that had the same colorway but looked vastly different depending on when she purchased it. And that's because with certain techniques, it is harder to exactly match what you're looking for because we don't have um, the same way that we speckle necessarily. We might not take pictures or write our recipes down the same way. However, in my experience, most yarn dyers really strive to replicate our yarns exactly each time. Now, it's not going to be like store-bought yarn. There will be some variation in the color slightly, and there might be some more colors of a specific speckle than another, depending on which dye pot it was in or, when we dyed it. So there can be some differences. Now, that being said, I'm not saying that you shouldn't buy indie dyed yarn. I think you should, but there's a technique to avoid seeing vast differences between those, the different dye baths of the colorways, and that's to use two skeins at the same time. And so I'm currently working on a blanket with my own dyed yarn, and although it's a tonal color, and although I did it in 3 separate dyeing sessions, it's very similar, but I still do 2 skeins at once. So I'll knit 2 rows and then I'll switch and just cross the threads. And every 2 rows I just switch skeins, and that should avoid a line and that should allow for blending. So I definitely encourage you guys to buy indie dyed yarns and to use that technique if you need more than 1 skein. Also, if you ever do have an issue with indie dyed yarn, mine or anyone else's, I would encourage you to politely contact the indie dyer and say, hey, this is the first skein I got, this is the second skein, they're really different. What can we do about that? Because I think in most cases, the yarn dyer will make an effort to get you a skein that looks more similar to the original one you have, or to give you a discount or a refund. We want you guys to be happy with our products. So I just wanted to say that because it was rather upsetting to hear that yarn owner talking about this one experience with one dyer and one colorway, not necessarily the other colorways. And a bunch of knitters and crocheters and weavers might have thought, well, why should I spend $28 per skein if I'm not going to like the product? And I don't think that's usually the case. I think 99% of the time people are really happy with indie dyed yarns. So if you have any questions, please leave them below. And thank you so much for listening.